In the spirit of reconciliation, I acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples today. Welcome to Totally Lit, the podcast celebrating reading, writing and creating literature. I'm your host, Ky Garvey. Thank you for listening. Jane Sullivan, welcome to Totally Lit.
Thank you so much, Ky. I'm so happy to be here.
I'll just give my listeners a little bit of point of reference. I came along to the 2026 launch of Birds with a Feather book club with yourself and Rebecca Sparrow. I was blown away by the packed auditorium that you had full of readers. And I very nervously sidled up to you like I do to all my guests and go, "Hi, would you like to come on my podcast?" And you very graciously accepted. So thank you so much for joining me tonight, Jane.
Oh, well, look, I could talk about books under wet concrete, so I'm more than happy to give my time on a Tuesday evening to chat to you about books. Yeah, that launch was very exciting for us. It was the first big launch event that we have done this is our 5th year of Birds of a Feather. So we were thrilled ourselves that we had over 400 women there, many of them current members or friends and curious parties who came along and have since become members. And it was lovely to see you there that night.
It was incredible, just a room full of love. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was really just a positive vibe and I just loved everybody was there for the love of books.
Yeah. And we're really Beck and I are really about reading for joy and rediscovering a love of reading. I think so many of our members are like lapsed readers. They loved reading as kids or as young adults. And then, the busyness of life got in the way and they found themselves falling out of the habit. And so we're really, we say that we're helping women fall back in love with reading. And there's something lovely about carving out that time in your day to read because it's so nourishing for us.
Reading is very good for my mental health and just being able to sort of transport yourself somewhere else just for a little while. It's amazing.
It absolutely does. Yeah. And look, there's lots of research to support that. There's a study out of the University of Sussex that people quote all the time that 6 minutes of reading a day can reduce your stress levels by up to 68%. And there's a great section in who wrote Stolen Focus? I always forget who wrote Stolen Focus, but the book Stolen Focus about, our attention being hijacked. And there's a chapter in there about how reading is the best way for the average person. Reading fiction in particular is the best way for the average person to get into flow state. And I just feel like, you said at the question, you were curious about this kind of prevalence of book clubs popping up everywhere. And I think that there's a good reason for that people are yearning for something more meaningful. The never-ending scroll, the doom scrolling is not particularly uplifting or nourishing for our minds and souls, and reading is the antithesis of that. It's so good for us. And so, we're really passionate about women doing more of it.
Johann Hari.
Yeah, I thought it was Johann Hari. Thank you. I did say that, and then I second-guessed myself because there's a few of his books that I've read that I find interesting. But, that Stolen Focus is, in particular, I think, just a stark reminder about how our attention has been hijacked by social media and marketing and all that sort of stuff. And books feels like a return to something that probably a lot of us enjoyed in childhood. And it's important to continue to carve out time for those things.
Did you want to share with me the Jane and Beck origin story?
It was a match made in the stars. We often joke that the universe kept, kind of putting each other in one another's orbit. And over many decades, really, we bumped into each other. So as many of your listeners would know, they would have no idea who I am. But Rebecca Sparrow, my business partner and very dear friend, is a very well-known and loved author, podcast host, community builder. She's a friendship expert. And she and I guess the short version of the story is that she and I, after I had finished sort of teaching English in the classroom, and I have four sons ranging from sort of 8 to 16. But when they were all about under 8, I was working at a local Brisbane bookstore called Riverbend Books, my favourite indie bookstore. And Beck and I were both invited to be on a panel sharing our favourite YA reads, I think it was. And I had heard her on a podcast and I had read her novels. When I was teaching, she came as a guest speaker to the school I was working at. And so there were all these little sort of moments that we'd bumped into each other and we just really hit it off and we made this connection. And Beck had already been running a very successful mother-daughter book club and really wanted someone to come on board to help with the book selections and reading notes. And as an English teacher and having hosted kids and teacher librarian book clubs at Riverbend, I was sort of in that space as well. And when we came together, it was originally to start a kids book club, which we still run, the Rebel Readers Alliance. And that's what her sort of mother-daughter book club morphed into. We wanted to make it open up to all kids. And it was just on the cusp of COVID. So, well, just after 2020, we launched that. And it was a business that wouldn't necessarily have got off the ground if it weren't for COVID, because I think we had a lot of kids from Victoria, people were more familiar with online learning and signing up for online courses. And we ended up with having sort of 500 kids in this book club right off the bat from all over all parts of Australia. And so in that first year, and Kids Book Club is so special because it was the one we launched our business together with. And we got to showcase amazing Australian authors and, we do all sorts of things with them. We have pen pal programs and reading journals that they submit and prizes and all sorts of stuff. And anyway, after that first year, Beck put it out to her Facebook page. She's got tens of thousands of followers on there and said, is anyone interested in us running a book club for grown-ups? And we sort of we launched it on a whim, but we sort of tested the idea, I guess. And in that first year of Birds, which is our shorthand for Birds of a Feather, in that first year of Birds, we got 700 members. And we have almost doubled every year. We went to 1,500 the next year, then 3,000, then 5,500. And this year we have close to 7,500 members. So I think the magic of it, Ky, and the reason why it has just blossomed for us is that it is about the books, but it's also about community. And we are trying really hard to, encourage people to stop scrolling and start reading. Absolutely. A big focus is getting great books into the hands of readers. And we like to showcase Australian authors and diverse voices, and as well as the big blockbusters. But also we're trying to create a community because, we're in the midst of a loneliness epidemic, and Beck's expertise of 20 years of educating young people on friendship and community. I think what we realized is that women were calling out for community as well, for a place to connect. And we both really feel like the growth has come not just because people are excited about reading again, because to be frank, we could get them excited about reading again and then they could leave the book club and go off and be a reader on their own.
Yes.
I think what keeps people in the community is that they're making friendship and we're providing opportunities for them to connect in real life as well as online. So we're really, we believe that this is a legacy business for us, that we want a community that actually the bigger we grow, the closer we will become. Because the opportunity to run into another bird in a tiny town in Bunbury, Western Australia, or in Wagga, or in New South Wales, wherever, the opportunity to bump into a bird increases the bigger that we can grow our community. So we have a really big vision that
already
this
happened
is.
to me.
Has it? Tell me about that.
Hairdresser. I was getting my hair done, and another lady sitting across at the other side of the room. It's like, I just joined a book club today. It's called Birds of a Feather Book Club. And I'm like, I know that book club.
I love
and that
it.
was just local in Barden kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah.
oh, there you go. We're everywhere.
We're ubiquitous. That's what we want. We want the birds to be ubiquitous. It's really, they're the stories I love, and I've even done it. I was in Byron Bay for the Byron Bay Writers Festival, and I could see a woman by the pool where I was staying holding the book that we were reading that month. And I thought, oh, what are the chances? I wonder if she's a bird. And she was. And it's like we're little secret agents scattered across Australia. And the only way you can tell who we are is by the books we are carrying.
One thing that I noted, I saw a few posts about when you have been supporting remote birds, that you've reached out to communities and said, hey, we're offering a free subscription in this area to support the growth of the book club in that area. I was really impressed by that,
Yeah.
that you're thinking about those women out in the middle of nowhere that need community, and
Yeah.
you're finding ways to make that happen for them.
Yeah, because, we don't want there to be a barrier to joining a community, whether it be financial or geographical. And those paid members who can afford to be part of it, we want them to know that their membership helps us. It allows us to welcome with open arms, many hundreds of people who would not otherwise be able to be part of this community. And I think that if you are in a remote area, there is less access to writers' festivals, author events. Being able to be in your lounge room or your bedroom on a Sunday night and hear from Trent Dalton talking about Lola and the Mirror love stories is a wonderful opportunity. And I think that is also what separates us perhaps from a traditional book club, in that we love to have the authors as part of the conversation so that the readers get this whole extra insight into the story. Yeah, and I think, like I said, if there's one member in a small town and they can do a shout out saying, "Hey, Beck and Jane are giving away some free memberships. Does anyone want to join with me?" And that means that there's 3 or 4 people in that town who can meet in person at the local coffee shop. That's really powerful stuff. That's a friendship. That's a connection that I've got goosebumps talking about it. That's a connection that's been made that may not never have happened.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the great thing about a book club is it's the icebreaker. The book of the month is the icebreaker. It is very hard. It's not too hard for me, who is probably a bit of a natural extrovert, but it's hard to strike up a conversation, a pro of nothing, in out and about in the day, like we tend to stick to small talk like the weather, or if you've got a dog, it's easier. If you've got a dog that you can stop, or a cute baby, people will stop and chat to you. But typically it's quite difficult to strike up a conversation. So I think having a book, you've got something tangible to talk about, and it gives them that point of connection.
When you and Beck initially had the idea of a book club, was it initially always going to be a business?
Yes, it was, because Rebel Readers, the kids' book club, was a business, and Beck had been running her mother-daughter book club as a business. And, to be perfectly frank, I had left my teaching career to start my own tutoring business, was working, doing all sorts of things, working at the University of Queensland, teaching academic English and doing a bit of supply work, doing some tutoring. Like, I had already started a business. Beck already had an established business. Forming a business together made sense because we need to feed our 7 children.
Yes. Did you find starting at monetising a book club, did it lose any of that feeling of, when you just go to the local library or a few girls out at a bar or having a coffee chatting about a book? Were you able to bring that feeling to the community?
Yeah, look, I think we have too. And I have to say, sometimes when something is free, there's lots of free book clubs online. There's lots of podcasts that you can listen to that are free, but you don't necessarily get the same level of commitment or accountability. And also, we just would not be able to offer the platform that we provide if it was a free book club,
Yeah.
because there's a huge amount of expense and hours that go into creating. We have a membership portal that you log into that houses our entire library of back catalogue of books that we've read and author interviews. We have a podcast. Like, all these things take time and money to produce.
Yeah.
And I guess if you had limitless funds, you could provide something like that for free. But we're business women, and we're mums, and we are trying to create a successful business that also does good in the world. And so I think it is a real challenge for a lot of women in business of putting a price on something that they offer. And some people indeed probably do get their hackles up a little bit that we charge for our book club. But I think for those people who once they join and they see the value that they get out of it, it is so much more than just a book recommendation every month. And people could follow along from the outside and see the books that we read and follow along with their own book clubs. We realize that we don't have control over that, but within the community, what you have access to, we strongly believe is worth the membership fee. You know what I found? I've been a member of lots of those sorts of book clubs, and invariably I was the only one who was reading the books.
Yes.
And then I would tell people about the book. And that's what I mean. Like, there's sometimes a little bit of accountability isn't such a bad thing. Like, I could go out and exercise in my backyard, but I pay a group trainer with a bunch of friends every week to teach me to lift weights and to run around a netball court because I need accountability. I could do it on my own, but I just wouldn't. And I think reading for a lot of women, or being in a book club, was the same thing. The responsibility will often fall to one woman in that group. And they will be the one, it'll probably be you would be that person in your friendship group, perhaps, Ky, and you'd be the one recommending the books or the one reading it, and they wouldn't actually get to talk about the book a lot of months. And there were, people often joke that it was, we're really a wine club, not a book club. And we didn't want that. We wanted Birds of a Feather to be a book club. We wanted to suck the marrow, to quote Robin Williams in Dead Poet Society. We wanted to suck the marrow out of the book and get the most out of it, as well as providing opportunities for those people who wanted to connect in real life and make some of those friendships. So, I think it's unique. There's, we've got Reese's book club, we've got Oprah's book club. They're different. They're different again because they do a monthly book, but there's no way of connecting all those people who are part of that book club. So we are a book club community.
I actually used to run my own book club, which was a science fiction book club, and it was just 10 of us getting together in a coffee shop in West End once a month. But organising those 10 people every month, it was difficult at times, and there would be times where somebody would be saying, I live south side, I live north side, can't we do something in a different area? You would choose a different venue, and then the other group would not be happy. And it felt like constant organising and not being able to please everyone. So I imagine running a book club of this size is a lot of work as well.
A full-time job. And in fact, this year I'm planning to quietly close down my other business, which is an online tutoring platform where I support students in year 11 and 12 with their QCE English. If you've got people from interstate, that's the Queensland senior curriculum. And I'm planning, because the book club takes up all my time, and now we've started running reading retreats for our members. And we want to go bigger with our launch event. A lot of preparation goes into that and planning. So yeah, this is a full-time job for Beck and I, and we have 2 staff members now who work helping us with there's a huge amount of kind of technical infrastructure that sits behind any online business that often you don't see. So that is, our mailing database, our website, our membership portal. People lose their logins, or they can't access the podcast. There's, with 7,000 members, you can appreciate the bigger we get, the more emails that we have to manage. And also, Beck and I, we're reading books now, trying to map out 2027. We're working 7-8 months in advance, wanting to get the best lineup of books for our members and trying to get our hands on advanced copies of books. And, any book that appears in our lineup, we have not chosen lightly. We have sweated over the decision and where it sits within the lineup and what mood we're looking for. And I don't know if you know, but just this week we've announced that we're partnering with 2 of Australia's biggest selling romance writers, and we're launching a romance-only club called Kiss and Tell. Yeah. So we're really excited about that.
Very exciting.
And, I suspect some people, certainly, I'm a former English teacher, so I suspect some people will raise their eyebrows and look askance at a romance-only book club. And there are other book clubs we could have launched, a classics or literary award winners, but we really feel like not is only romance one of the big fastest selling genres in the world, But we really think that people are looking for joy in a fairly dark time, and we wanted to bring something that our members perhaps could be members of both birds and romance, and kiss and tell. We wanted to bring some fun and some whimsy and some joy and delight because, yeah, I think people are feeling very overwhelmed at the news cycle at the moment, Kylie, and we really, yeah, we want to offer a space that exists, away from that.
I was very lucky enough to meet Ali Blake recently at the Blush Romance Festival that was just here in Brisbane. I was on speaking on a panel there, and romance writers have the most fun. It was an awesome
Yeah.
festival. I think that it will be a really good book club for you guys. Like, it was so much fun, and it was a little
Um,
bit naughty and a little bit,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and everybody was having a cocktail, and there were, like, all romance themed things through the whole weekend. They showed showings of films, so I saw Wuthering Heights at the launch and then The Bodyguard on the Saturday, so
Oh,
I'm not a romance writer, but I do like a little bit of romance, so it was lots of fun, and I was
yeah.
thrilled to get the opportunity to meet Ali face to face as
She's
well, so
just
I
a
think she's gonna be
delight.
great
Yeah.
for your book
Yeah.
club.
I think she's gonna be great. So Claire Connolly and Ali Blake will be hosting the book club, but it will sort of sit underneath our banner of Books with Beck and Jane, and we're helping with a lot of the background stuff. And yeah, I think there's something so playful and lovely about romance, and that that it's gonna be a happy ending. Like, maybe
Yes.
there's something really reassuring about the comfort and predictability of a romance story, and yeah, I we're really Beck and I are really excited about it as an opportunity to showcase these two amazing women as book club hosts, and yeah, to offer something that's just, I think, is fun.
Yes, there are those people that read certain genres for comfort, and if
Mm,
that's what they love, why not celebrate that? And I've been following a few different book clubs, like, on Instagram and Facebook, and it's really interesting because readers are different from writers, and I've
mm,
been really interested in learning who the readers are, and,
mhm,
because I'm quite a literary reader most of the time, and I love sort of, like, historical stuff and Tudor stuff and that sort of
mhm,
thing, but I'm like, "But who are the readers out there that are reading everything and, like, readers that are purchasing books to collect the covers and, "Oh, this has got the certain gilt on the outside," and I'm like, "Oh, there's, like, a whole different world of readers that are different from myself."
mm.
That's I guess as a writer, I find it very interesting to know the people who are actually sitting reading the books that I will potentially write. I only have a
Yeah.
few out, so I'm mainly engaging with kids, but I do aim to write adult work as well. And I'm like, okay, who would be the person reading something I write? I don't think I'll be writing like a Philippa Gregory style book anytime soon because I'm not a historian, but that's what I enjoy reading. But that's not what
Yeah.
I will be writing. But yeah, I find it, yeah, really interesting that about who the readers are and why are they purchasing a book, because there are an array of different reasons why they've bought a book.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people, and we have got a little bit of criticism about this, if we choose a quote unquote lighter read, there will be criticism from some parts of our book club that there wasn't enough gravitas or literary merit. And I would certainly see this in teaching English teaching circles, almost a literary superiority about certain genres, and I just don't subscribe to that. I think you should read what you really enjoy, and I'm a very eclectic reader, so I might read a Hannah Kent or Robbie Arnott are two of my favorite Australian authors, and then love a Jojo Moyes, UK contemporary romance fiction, or, I love Philippa Gregory too. I love rich tapestries of historical stories, but also Beck and I last year interviewed the wonderful author Tony Birch about his book, The White Girl. And he spoke about being a generous reader. And I really believe that is what we aim to do in Birds of a Feather. You'll notice that we never personally, post negative reviews about books, or look for the flaws in a book. That is not our style. When we choose a book, we're looking for what we love about it, what sparks a conversation, what encourages us to go deeper in the story. It's very easy, particularly in a background of literary analysis like I have, it's very easy to point out the plot holes, or the flaws in the syntax, but I just think that diminishes the incredible effort and temerity it takes to write a novel. I think it is an act of huge courage to write and then to put that writing out into the world. And if we are selecting a novel, we give our members opportunities within our private Facebook group to give their honest reviews. We don't censor people's dislike of a novel, but Beck and I will never approach any of our books in that way. We will look for what we loved about it, or challenged us, or made us think. And I think that's also possibly refreshing in this space, because, if I don't think I could ever be a literary critic, to be honest, because I think it would, to crush someone, or to criticize rather than critique, someone's writing. Yeah, that's just not in me, Ky. I think almost every book I read, I can find some merit in it and some way to connect. And certainly, whether a book is criticized for being too light, I think that we need books that have levity, that uplift, that an escape from the reality of life sometimes. So, yeah, I don't know what the question was there. I got on my soapbox a little bit,
lost now.
but it is interesting to think about what type of reader you are. And
Yes.
to be frank, the books that we choose at the start of the year are vital in helping those people who haven't read it a long time feel successful. So we want a book that is such a page turner, so riveting and easy to get into, that someone who hasn't read a book in a decade will be like, yes, that is the first book I've read. And, Sally Hepworth's the perfect book. We launched that in January this year because she's got such a way of kind of barreling you into the story immediately, and you not wanting to get out. And I think that is really good for people who are trying to form a new habit of reading.
How does it feel getting to meet and connect with all the authors? For me, I was solely a reader till I was 40 years old, and then I always, in the back of my head, I want to write, but I didn't do it. And I looked at writers as being unapproachable, unattainable. But now, like, I'm a member of the Brisbane Writers Crew. We get together every month, and I'm surrounded by people who have written amazing, incredible novels. And I just look around and go, I cannot believe the amount of talent just sitting around this table at the moment. And I'm very spoilt now to be able to know those people and just be having a coffee with them. And that is something I guess your book club allows readers to have a little bit of a connection with authors as well.
Oh, it is just the best, and I never take it for granted. I was telling you off camera before we started recording this podcast that 11 years ago I was sitting at the Brisbane Writers Festival listening to Joanne Harris, author of Chocolat, be interviewed. And I remember sitting there thinking, I would love to be on that stage. And I didn't want to be Joanne Harris. I wanted to be the interviewer. And 10 years later, I was on that same stage interviewing Kate Mordaunt with Beck. And I just had a real pinch me moment because I've dabbled with writing, of course, over the years. What English teacher hasn't? As a young child, I wrote poetry that my grandmother, dutifully published and bound up for me.
Oh, that's lovely.
But certainly at this time of my life with 4 young kids, I don't have the inclination or the tenacity probably to sit and write a novel. I am first and foremost a reader, and I'm very happy there. I don't think some writers or sort of nascent, unpublished writers feel a great sense of envy of writers who are further down that journey, whereas I don't have that. I can sit in pure admiration because I'm not yearning to be there as a published author myself. And so it is just an absolute joy. And, Beck has been in this industry far longer than me and is a published author. And so many of these authors are friends of hers or she's met over the years at festivals and things. And she takes it in her stride far more than me. But I can remember in our second year, I think, we did the beautiful book, The Best Kind of Beautiful by Frances Whiting. And Frances Whiting, for those of you who aren't from Queensland, is the longest running column in the weekend paper. She's just beloved in Brisbane in particular, and I loved her book. And she is a consummate interviewer. And I remember asking her, like, I think she's interviewed, like
Everyone.
just like Princess Di, I think, or Steve Irwin, and she's just interviewed all sorts of extraordinary people. And I remember asking her, like, do you get overwhelmed or starstruck? And she just said, Jane, people are people are people. And it is, when you scratch the surface, we're all just little walking facades, and there's
Yes.
behind we're just everyday people going about our business. And I think actually what a lot of the authors tell us is lovely about coming to our book club as a guest when we've chosen their book for the month is that they really get into the nitty-gritty of the book. Like you're allowed to give spoilers. So it's difficult when I interview authors, say, for a book launch, because I can't actually get too deep into the book. I can only kind of encourage people to go out and read it and talk about, the first couple of chapters maybe. Whereas the authors who come, whether it's the children's authors or the grown-up authors, when they come to the meeting, everyone there has read it and we get to go deep. And I think that that's really fun for the authors to speak to an audience of people who have already read it. So often at festivals, they're talking to an audience who hasn't yet read it. And that's a big point of difference for them.
It is a challenge, especially if you are interviewing, in my case, where I'm interviewing an author potentially before the book is being released. And it's a little bit difficult to know what can we talk about, what can't we talk about.
You
I
don't
need
want to
to
be
be
like
careful of the
Tom
date that
Holland.
yes.
Tom Holland giving away the ending to the Marvel movie or something.
I'm like, oh, what date? I can't release this on this date because the book won't have come out yet. I'll have to sort of do my schedule and make sure I don't ruin the whole thing for everybody.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, I saw on your website that you have a little note up there at the moment that there are some people sending emails on your behalf that are not really you. So you guys are
Yeah.
also victims of those terrible scam emails that are coming out to everybody.
Yeah, and what's awful is that they're not trying to scam us, although they are fraudulently posing as us. They're trying to scam authors saying that, I've read your book and we're going to showcase it in Birds of a Feather. And I don't know if they're asking people for money, but it's terrible.
I still
And
haven't quite figured out what the goal is because I get like 5 a day from various
from,
different scammers, not
yeah,
from you guys yet.
that's
But I'm like,
interesting. Is this happening to other authors as well, Kai?
yes, everybody is getting them. It'll be usually it's we are a book club and we would like to feature your book, and they'll then spout on about how much they enjoyed the book and how well I wrote it. And in my case, it's a picture book, so 350 words. I'm like, I don't think I really captured your heart that much, but I never respond because you can see it's a scam.
Yeah.
But I think if I had received a Birds of a Feather request, I might have been like, oh,
Mm,
that's a genuine book club in my city. Wouldn't that
yeah.
be exciting? But of course, as soon as I get any request for money, I would know it's not
Yeah,
legit.
and they're very well, I don't wanna say they're clever, but that it's so duplicitous, and I think what they it's a form of grooming, isn't it? Like, they're just kind of luring you in with these little promises, which I suspect would eventuate in, yeah, asking for money to be showcased on a website or whatever, which we would never do. We never take any payment from our authors or publishers for the books we choose. Every book that we choose is Beck and I's personal choice for what we believe is right for our book club. There is no money changing hands from publishers or authors or and anything that we, any affiliate links that we might have in emails are openly declared, and we use any funding from affiliate links to donate to the Children's Hospital where we provide free books and access to our book clubs for kids. So, yeah, look, I think it's so disappointing because then I hate the thought that our business
Yes.
or our name is being tarnished like
Well,
that.
especially
And
when
I
you're trying to do something legitimate, and that idea of I'm wanting to do good in the world and make a difference, and then someone is pretending to be you and sort of cancelling some of that good out.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, authors. It seems in the author community in Australia, most certainly, we're all getting emails just being
And
slammed by.
And look, I don't know why they're targeting authors because it's bloody
They
hard
have
to
no
make a living
money.
out of being an author in Australia. So I don't know if they're picking the right people, perhaps going for the merchant bankers or I don't know, real estate moguls or something. Not poor old authors who, are working really hard to make a living out of their creativity. And yeah, don't respond to those emails.
As an author, you are always looking for opportunities to showcase your work. And there are times where you do need to invest to make that happen. But you do have to, I guess, be so careful and wary and make sure that you're utilizing those funds in a worthwhile way with a trusted person as well. Like, that is some of why I'm interested around the monetization of a book club, is like for myself, I'm halfway between being a business and halfway between being a hobby, and learning to value myself and figure out what am I spending money on? What am I charging people? Like, it's with art, it's such a difficult thing to value
Yeah, I think
yourself with.
I think it's the arts, and I think it's also being a woman in business, to be frank. I think it's a huge barrier to put a price on your worth, I guess.
Yeah.
And I read a great article a few years ago now by Nikki Gemmell, who wrote in the Australian that she was no longer going in her weekly column that she was no longer going to be doing guest speaking events for free
Yes.
because so often, it might be for a great cause or, a writers' festival, whatever, but it still takes time and preparation. And she's probably in a position where she can say no to opportunity versus money. But yeah, I think it's really tough when you're starting out, and I don't have the answer. I think, I've had good business mentors, I guess, helping me with some of those decisions with both my businesses as I've tried to grow them. But it's so tricky because there's certainly lots of things that you want to say yes to because it might showcase your talents. Might be, say, doing an author interview at your local big bookstore or whatever. It builds a network, but it's also unpaid labor. And
Mm.
it's so tricky. I think we see this in all aspects of creative industries. So I still don't have the answer to that or
It's
any advice except that, when you can afford to pay people well for what they do for you, then to pay them. If you're not in a position, then be upfront.
the economy is going to make some of these things that we enjoy more inaccessible for some of our fellow women, especially,
Mm.
who will be doing it tough out there. And I live in the world where I have a full time job and I'm writing and podcasting and all the cracks. So
Mhm.
my day is quite frantic in that I've already done 8 hours of a pretty busy job today. cooked dinner, done some
Mm.
research to make sure I'm on the ball with questions for you that are like,
Look,
oh, here we
to
are.
be
I'm enjoying this chat.
leaving teaching, and I was pregnant with my 3rd child, and then I went on to have another one because I'm slightly unhinged, was one of the scariest things I've ever done, to leave. I'd been there for almost 15 years at a beautiful school. I had permanency, I would have got paid maternity leave. For me, it was a decision that I needed freedom and flexibility, and I wanted to be able to spend more time at home with my kids while they were young. But since that day, so that was how many years ago now? Oh, 2013. So yeah, 12 years ago. Yep, I was hustling. I was I had to teach myself how to build my own website because I couldn't pay anyone to create it for me. And I was sitting in the car in my garage, Ky, with a 5-month-old asleep in the back,
Yep.
writing copy for my website, learning how to. This is when I was running holiday workshops for Year 12 students, learning how to market myself, which I had never done before. And I think, what is wonderful about being in a partnership is you're not doing it alone. It is incredibly lonely,
Mm.
as I'm sure many writers would attest, working at something on your own and not having someone to bounce ideas off. And so I think it's wonderful that you're part of a writing community, because it has been the connections with other women in business, with other people working from home or in the online space, where I've had the most growth mindset. And I just had to get over a lot of internal barriers about
Yeah.
what I was capable of. I'd been a teacher for so long. That was such a big part of my identity. And when COVID hit and someone said, well, have you thought about putting your tutoring business online? I said, oh no, I'm not a very techie person.
Mm.
And and then the frustration of not being able to move ahead because I couldn't pay for the technology, just, I don't know, it just forced me to have more of a growth mindset, where I said, well, I don't know how to do that yet. And then I just taught myself how to build a website. And now I reckon I could build one in under an hour. And I update our websites for Birds of a Feather, and I can do, embed videos. And I worked out how to do a podcast. We didn't have a podcast initially. We just had video Zooms recorded, but we knew lots of people wanted to listen to our meetings on the go instead of sitting
Yeah.
down at the laptop to watch it. So I learned how to set up a platform for a podcast. And, actually the barrier to entry into business for people now is lower than it's ever been. There's a real democratization of business if you are willing to kind of, do DIY it as I did in the early days. We're now in a position where we can pay experts to make it more sophisticated, but certainly that was not the case in those early years of my business.
What we find with many businesses run by women is that behind the scenes, even though everything is looking wonderful from the outside, no one really understands all the things that are taking place to make that happen. I'm like, I need to YouTube this.
Absolutely.
How do I do this? I'm a bit of a
Absolutely.
technophobe. Up until I was about 35, I would have considered myself at the forefront of everything. And then suddenly life just moved past me. And I'm like, I don't know how to use Canva. This is looking really hard. I can't edit my own podcast. Everybody now,
Everything.
you know the truth.
Yeah, everything is figure outable though.
Yep.
Or look, we do very little editing on our podcast, because I think there's something, okay, let's we don't have time to go deep into the AI territory and its challenge for businesses and book clubs and writers and things, but my hope is that AI generated content will become so ubiquitous that people will actually turn off in droves, because it will ultimately become meaningless. It will be like static, TV static. No one will want to watch it. And people will yearn for real, authentic, imperfect human conversations as we are having now.
Yeah.
And uh, and that only comes because if you're willing to make mistakes and mess it up. Something I really struggled with after working in a a quite sort of competitive teaching environment for a long time at a prestigious school is perfectionism was sort of aspired to. And if there was, a typo in a PowerPoint, then, colleagues would switch off thinking, well, this is meaningless, this is worthless because there's a spelling error and she's an English teacher and she wouldn't make a mistake. And now I take imperfect action because it creates forward momentum.
Yeah.
And if there's an error and someone wants to have a go at me because I've made a spelling error, as anyone can do at any time, I've taught myself not to be a pedant about those sorts of things, because otherwise you stall. And I'm sure that's the same with writing. That if you are trying to create a perfect prose every day, you wouldn't get anywhere. Sometimes you've just got to write badly and have a go.
I am a perfect speller, but I am a terrible typer. So usually if I've written something, especially in my work during the day, it'll be a typo, but then it will glare at me and then it's like backspace.
And you'll go into a shame spiral that you published a typo. Oh, look, I get it too. For a long time, I worried a lot about what my English teacher colleagues would think of all sorts of things, but I've sort of released myself from the shackles of those expectations, because none of us are perfect. And also, the other challenge I found in the early years of the book club is that, a book that I had loved, to the depths of my soul, when people would criticize it in the Facebook group, I would take it very personally. But I've had to come to accept that there are as many interpretations of a book as there are readers, and that for some people it doesn't resonate, and then that's okay. It's not a personal attack at me because I've recommended that book.
Mm-hmm. I think too, people have taste, which is a different thing. Like, you can read a book and not like it because it wasn't for you, but that doesn't mean it's not a great book or it wasn't well written. It's just that you as an individual did not enjoy that. And that's just like,
and that's okay.
Some people love romance, some people love historical, some love I also love true crime and crime novels as well. So it's just,
and crime's probably the genre that I read the least amount of, I have to say. It'll be peppered in there occasionally, but I don't read a lot of crime. But reading a certain type of book doesn't make you a superior person to someone who reads a different genre of book. It just doesn't. And so I think, I like the idea that we read a quite eclectic collection of books, some commercial fiction, some literary fiction, debut authors, undiscovered gems. I think that, variety is the spice of life, as they say.
Well, I think too, if you spent some time with me and my Netflix viewing habits, you would see a very different side of me to the side of the books I read. So like, I think that sometimes my taste is like a teenage boy watching silly comedies. So I think whatever you need to decompress and find that joy wherever it is.
Right. No judgment. It's art. Art is subjective. I think watch what makes you happy. And I think too, I'm a real mood reader. So I will have 3 or 4 books on the go at any one time, and I will pick them up depending on what mood I'm feeling like at that particular time. And don't ask me how I'm able. People ask me all the time. I've got no clear answer as to why I'm able to read so many books and how I'm able to read multiple books at the one time. But I think it is my one superpower, and I'm just leaning into it and accepting it for what it is.
Super Jane, super Rita.
Yeah, well, I say that recommending books is my love language. Like, I was at one of my kids' sporting training sessions the other night, and some school mums came over and said, "Oh, what have you been reading lately?" And they were like, "Oh, sorry, you probably don't want to talk about this because it was work." And I was like, "No, excited to talk about this. There's so many books that I can recommend to you right now. Like, I am that person who, if someone's in a bookstore and I'm not actually working at the bookstore, but someone's looking like they can't find what they're looking for, I'll sidle up to them and start, oh, have you read this? That's amazing.
I love that. A few little questions just for us to wrap up so that listeners can learn a little bit more about you. If you went back to primary school, Jane, what would she think about you being part of the Birds of a
Oh,
Feather book club?
oh my God, she would be over the moon. Over the moon. I spent my entire childhood with my nose in a book in my little cubby house, reading everything from Archie comics to Roald Dahl and Judy Blume, and to think that I had created a career for myself where I got paid to read, she would just think all her Christmases had come at once.
You're living the dream.
I
Amazing.
am. I truly am. I don't take it for granted for one instant.
Now, can you tell me one thing about you that my listeners and your book community may find surprising?
Well, my favourite event at the Ekka, which is the Brisbane exhibition, the equivalent of Melbourne's Royal Show or whatever, my favourite event is the woodshop.
Ah,
And I'm secretly, I loved The Man from Snowy River, and I love country and western music, and sometimes I feel like I should be, living like a Jillaroo in the outback and having a husband who chops wood. There you go. Is that
thank
a
you
good
very
one
much.
that people I don't know? I don't mind people knowing that I love the wood chop. I just find it very highly entertaining. It's a highlight for me.
I think there's something mesmerizing about that process too, where you're watching it
Nothing
chipping
else,
away.
like no other sport in the world, the wood chop. Yeah.
Now, for a non-initiated member of the book club, so somebody that is looking to join, what I guess is the best thing about your book club for one of my listeners who might be looking at joining a book community?
Okay, we are the No Judgment Book Club. If you don't get a book finished in the month, or you skip ahead to the next month, or a reading last month, that's totally okay. Reading in our book club is not a race. It's not a competition. Okay, if you only read a handful of the 11 books we do each year, that is still a huge success. I think so often people feel like they're letting their book club down or letting themselves down if they don't read every single book in the order that they're being read. We try to make the program accessible in a way that you can listen to that podcast recording, the interview recording when you've finished the book. It doesn't have to be finished on that particular day of the month. So, yeah, I would say if you are someone who maybe wants to get into a regular habit of reading and read the books that everyone's buzzing about. It's fun to be part of the zeitgeist. Everyone was talking about Mad Mabel over the Christmas holidays. It was fun to say, oh, yes, I've read that, because it's a conversation starter. So if you want to read books that really spark great conversation, and you want to have fun with reading. So often women feel guilty when they read. So my mission is to stop women feeling guilty when they read. If you happen to be a mother and you see your children reading, you're giving yourself a pat on the back, like, job well done, my kid's reading a book. And yet we don't do ourselves the same favor. We feel like everything in our life has to be productive and purpose driven. It is okay just to read for fun. And that's what I really want the vibe of the book club to be, that we're reading this for fun. It's not a chore. It's not another thing on our never ending to-do list. There's so many shoulds in a woman's life. I should eat more protein. I should lift weights. Maybe that's just me in middle age, but there's a lot of things that I feel like I have to do. Reading isn't one of them. Reading is something I want to do, and it's good for us. And that's why you should join Birds of a Feather.
And I just love the idea of birds all over Australia spotting each other out in the wild.
No.
I think that's amazing.
Wouldn't it be wonderful? Like, I don't know how big this book club will grow. I don't know, but there is something magical about the idea that you could be traveling to a small town somewhere in central western New South Wales or popping over to Perth for work and you've got a loose afternoon, and for you to say, "Hey, are there any birds here? Does anyone want to meet for a coffee and chat about the book?" And I just think that it's like a dating app for book lovers or a friendship app for book lovers, that it's a way to find other people to connect with. And we all need those positive points of connection in our day, don't we?
Yes, totally. Hashtag bird spotting, I think should
Birds.
be a thing.
What are bird watchers called? Aren't they called twitchers or something? There could be a whole other
Oh, yes. Yes.
series of secret language about twitchers. I'm a twitcher spotting birds in the wild.
We might have to just Google it to double check the meanings on that just in case.
Might have made that up.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining me, Jane, and sharing about book club and, sharing a bit about yourself to my listeners.
Oh, Kylie, it's been an absolute delight. And congratulations on this wonderful podcast. I have listened to episodes. I think you're a wonderful
You've
interviewer.
listened. How exciting.
Yes.
That's made my
And I just was really, really chuffed that you asked me to be on here. So thank you so much. And thank you for being part of Birds. You're very important to us. All our members are.
Totally Lit is an independent podcast. You can help support us to continue to chat with wonderful Australian creatives by leaving a review on iTunes or sharing our socials with your friends. You can also make a contribution at www.buymeacoffee.com/Totally Lit. This will also help with equipment and podcasting platform fees. I love to interact with our listeners, so feel free to say hello either by email or social media at totallylitpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn and Twitter, and now Blue Sky. I've also created a group on Facebook called the Totally Lit Writing Community. It's a space to continue the conversation and share your writing successes, events, launches and latest projects. Jump into the group and say hello. Thank you for listening to Totally Lit, and don't forget to go out into the world to read, write, create, ignite.